Hi. So today for my video, instead of going over like a specific management skill that people should work on, I wanted to talk about myself and why I have started this project and why I'm making this company. Basically, just like a background FYI, so you know where I'm coming from. Because I think if you know where I'm coming from, that kind of gives context to the stuff that I'm trying to teach people. So I have professionally been in uh, mental health, human services for 7, 8-ish years. And I've done everything from, doing research at colleges to working with people who were, suicidal, self-injurious, wanting to kill themselves, kill other people, do everything they could to harm themselves because of what they were going through, to working in group homes, with adults and teenagers and children as young as like 2 or 3 years old, with a number of like behavioral issues. Like they'll get physically aggressive, they'll run away, they'll try to ingest batteries and toilet paper and toothpicks and crap that will harm them. So a lot of behavioral experience from what I'm used to, and then like the last, I don't know, like 4-ish years, I've been in like some type of like managerial role. Obviously I started off with running my own house, so it was a group home. I'm running the group home with people living in it, and I oversaw staff. Then eventually I was promoted to being a director, so I was overseeing the managers who were overseeing the leads who were overseeing the houses. Um, so it was a good amount of experience at different levels of managing different types of people. Obviously, there's kind of a difference in like the context of what you're actually managing when it comes to like managing people who are doing direct care staff, the entry level positions, versus the people who are managing the people who are managing the people who are doing the direct care. Obviously, because they are different roles, so they have different things to focus on. That was too much talking. Anyways, that's kind of my history. Um, over like last year, I've really kind of gotten into the identify what it is that you love doing and then do that for a living, because it doesn't really matter how much money you'll make, you'll be happy, and odds are if you're really passionate about it, you'll be successful too. What success looks like is different to different people, but so I was trying to figure out, what is it that I want to do? And I loved working in mental health because you're helping people, which is fantastic. There are people, a lot of the times there are people who like really, really need the support, because, they weren't getting it from their family or, from other institutions or friends. It was bad stuff. Helping people, it was great. Second, I think it provided me like a constant challenge. So my first actual job in working in mental health, I answered suicide phone lines for the National Suicide Society, or whatever it's called. That National Suicide Crisis Line where you call in, you speak with someone when you're feeling suicidal or engaging in self-harm or doing something potentially dangerous. I took those types of calls. And I remember the first call, there are a variety of different calls. Like you may take people who are homeless, they're looking for shelter, or someone who's about to get evicted, they're looking for, who can help get me funds to pay my rent so I can keep, my apartment for me and my kids. There's definitely a wide variety of different people who are in different types of crisis situations. I'd say like only 15% of the calls were actually people who were, suicidal, trying to harm themselves or harm others. And I remember like the first call that I got was someone who was suicidal. Not only like were they suicidal, but like they had a weapon to themselves and they were ready to kill themselves. And I spoke with them for about half an hour. Lots of high tensions, lots of emotions. But by the time the call ended, they were feeling a lot better. They were feeling that they were able to keep themselves safe. They got rid of the weapon. They agreed to let me do a follow-up call with them later on. We made safety plans. If you're feeling this way again, what are you going to do? Who are you going to contact? What's your plan? Did all that stuff. And like when I got off the call, I was just like, when I first got the call, my first 5 seconds on the call, I answer it. I'm like, what is it? First Thing 211 helpline. What can I do for you today? And they're like, crying, screaming, I'm going to kill myself. And like my first, 5 seconds, I was like, oh shit. Like this is really the first call, huh? And like my adrenaline started pumping. I'm like, oh my God, can't fuck this up. Because when you're working on those lines, if you say the wrong thing, they can just hang up and then you're screwed. There's nothing you can do to help them because, they could be across, the country for all you know. Long story short, that type of high stress, I really, really enjoyed. I really liked the concept of helping people who are in significant need of helping, as well as when you are doing this, like you have to be on your A game. There is no room for error. If you screw up, like that could have very, very serious effects, consequences. So I love that, which is why I stayed in human services, because I wanted that challenge of working with those difficult people with those difficult situations, because I felt like, it provided me opportunity, a shit ton of opportunity to learn, develop, continue to push myself to get better and better and better. And like I said, had a career, and eventually I got to the point where I was a program director, so I was overseeing managers and yada yada. And the company that I was at, I'm not going to say the name, but the president that we had was great, but he had to leave due to personal reasons. And so the owners of the company were like, hey, we need to hire someone for this human service president position of the company. Let's hire our personal trainer. And this person is someone who was a personal trainer to the owners, had a background in sports medicine. He worked for a company that apparently did pretty well, like it was like a gym or something. And they hired this person to run the president position of a human service agency, which, for those of you who do not know, human services is a very, very specific field that has lots of laws, has lots of rules and restrictions, has lots of, when situation A happens, you within 24 hours need to do this, this, and this. When situation B happens, within, 48 hours, you need to do this, this, and this. Lots of protocols. So you have to be very, very knowledgeable about the field as you rise up, because you're going to have a lot of expectations on you. And if you screw up, you have state investigators, county investigators, they could pull your license and close down your business. You need to know your shit, basically, the higher up you got. And they're like, hey, this is the highest position. Let's put someone who knows nothing in there, which was a horrible decision. After a couple of weeks of working with him, he made everyone very, very uncomfortable, because whenever he walked in, he was just all smiles, like, oh, hey, how's it going? Everything's perfect. This is all good. Happy to be here. It was clearly fake. Like, it was a face that he put on. And I think because he never showed any, genuine emotion or caring, or didn't want to ask for help when he didn't know what he was doing, people just naturally couldn't trust him, because he wasn't actually showing himself. He was clearly putting on a facade to try to make everyone feel better. And then one day he just kind of pulled me and some other people who were at my level in and said, no, hey, just so you guys know, I'm going to be firing, the vice president tomorrow. And we're like, what? And he did that. And we talked about it, and one of my peers brought up an awesome point that, hey, you fired this person, and you saw that they weren't performing up to your expectations for a while, and you didn't say a word to help them. You didn't, give them a chance to coach. You did nothing. You just saw them not living up to your expectations, which you shouldn't even have expectations, because you don't know what the hell anyone's supposed to be doing. And then you fired them. And the president responded with, basically, it's not my job to teach people or support people. It's my job to make sure people are doing their job and firing them when they're not. Which, again, not something that inspired confidence. So not too long after, one of my peers and myself pulled in one of the owners of the company, because the owners were around that day, and we grabbed one and we're like, hey, just so you know, this new president that you have, like, not good. A lot of people don't trust him. He's making decisions that are very, very bad. There was a good example. There was a stupid decision where, like, he's like, oh, hey, everyone who picks up these types of shifts can have a $2 raise. And he didn't actually do any of the paperwork to make it happen. He just assumed that because he said it, it would happen like that. That's getting besides the point. There were lots of things that he was doing that were very stupid. But the most important thing of all is that, like, he was just behaving in a way that no one could trust. He was making decisions that were impulsive without working with his team. He wasn't asking for clarification on the things that we knew he didn't understand, and then he would make these decisions, and it just rained down hell on everyone below him, and, he just smiled and walked out the door at 4 p.m. and didn't have to deal with any of it while we picked up the mess. So we talked to the owner, and we're like, hey, this dude is messing up. My coworker had a couple things to say, and when the owner asked my opinion, I was like, he's not a leader. Like, he can't lead us, like, to save his life. And the owner asked me, well, what does that mean? And at the time, I was like, well, fuck, what does that mean? I don't know. And I couldn't articulate it any better. I was just like, he's not a leader. Like, he can't lead people. People don't trust him. We're not going to follow him. Like, I'm not saying us, in the room personally, but, like, the entirety of the agency will not follow this person because of the way they are. And that's, like, I couldn't articulate it any better, and obviously that's not a good enough, explanation to a problem. So the owner was just like, oh, we'll just give him time and we'll see how he does. And then not too long after that, my coworker, who I had that meeting with, she put in her 2 weeks notice, and because she's like, I'm not working with this dude, I'm done. And at the time, I and several other people were also looking for jobs because we were done with that person too. He asked my coworker who put in her 2 weeks notice. He's like, okay, you put in your notice, don't come in anymore. I'll still pay you for your time, but I just don't want you in the office. And she's like, oh, you're going to pay me to not be here. Okay, fine, bye. So she's out. And then he sends out this, message to all of the managers and the program directors, which I was. And he says, hey, Monday the, 18th or whatever it was, we're all having an entire administrative meeting. Everybody come in at 8 a.m. I'll bring breakfast for everybody so we can eat, we can chat, and I'm going to tell you about the direction that I'm going to be taking this company in, some changes we're making, and basically just get everyone on the same page. And so we're all like, okay, fine, whatever. And then Sunday, the night before, he shoots me a message, and he's like, oh, hey, Josh, I want you to come in at 7 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. And I'm like, oh, I fucking wonder why that is. And I go in, and he sits me down, and he's like, oh, yeah, so just so you know, I wasn't telling the truth about, what we're going to be doing today. But, all you need to know is that I'm terminating you as of, immediately. And I was like, is there a reason why? And he's like, yeah, but we're not going to discuss it right now. And I was like, okay, great. See you later. So I left, and I shot out a text message to everybody just saying, hey, I'm sure you're going to find out in an hour, but I was fired this morning. He wouldn't tell me why, but, you'll be fine. You guys know what you're doing. You got it. And then I start to drive home. My home's like 45 minutes away. So by the time I get home, it's probably about 8:15. And I get a phone call from one of the managers who I didn't directly supervise, but one of my peers did. And he calls me and he's like, oh my God, like, this shit's crazy. Like, I just lost my position. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah. So he lied about the entire, Monday morning meeting, and he pulled us all into like the training room. He made us sit down. He wouldn't let us talk. He wouldn't let us look at our phones. He wouldn't let us leave to use the bathroom or smoke. And he just forced us to stay in that room with the trainer, who is a piece of work herself, basically just being like the warden and like making sure that no one leaves, making sure that no one looks at their phone, making sure that no one talks to each other. And then he pulls them all in one by one into the HR office and basically tells them if they have a job or not. So basically the two options are either A, your job is gone, bye, or B, you still have a job, but you now have to do 3 to 4 times more work because I'm getting rid of a majority of the people that we have. And I thought he was like messing with me. I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, no, I'm dead serious. Like, that's happening. And all of a sudden I started getting a call from another manager. I'm like, hey, I'll call you back. I answer their call. They're telling me the exact same thing. And I'm also getting text messages from other people that, came in while I was on that other call, and I'm now looking at them. I'm like, what the shit is happening? And that's basically what he did that day. He basically eliminated like 75% of those positions with no warning whatsoever, no rationale other than, I want more money for this company. That's what he literally said to all of us, that is what our goals are. We are, even though we're human services, we're there to work with people, we're there to, make their lives better. That doesn't matter. We're here for money, and the company had its rocks or its goals that it wants to get in the next X amount of years, and they're all now circled around money. Like, we don't care about people. He literally called our clients that we work with. We have people with schizophrenia. We have people with cerebral palsy. We have people with major depression and anxiety. These are people who really struggled through life, and we were there. We had quite a few people with autism as well, and they couldn't be at their homes because they physically couldn't keep themselves safe. And so we were there trying to make a home for them, trying to make them feel comfortable in a place with people who can keep them safe and who can work with them despite their challenging behaviors. And he's like, no, they're not people, they're products. They are how we get our money. That is how we have to view them. And it was just fucking crazy. And I know that doesn't sound terribly bad if you're not from human services, but it's bad. Anyways, he eliminated 75% of my coworkers and peers and things like that, and I was like, this is fucking terrible. And in my mind, I was just like, you had your chance to explain that something stupid like this was going to happen, but I couldn't describe why he wasn't a leader. I couldn't describe what it was that he was messing up on that made no one trust him. I couldn't describe what his red flags were. And so I'm looking back at that, and I'm like, the people who he fired, they have families, they have kids they need to take care of, they have, medical bills they need to do. I mean, they have rent, they have car payments, they have student loans, they have all this shit that they were, depending on this job for, and he just could not care less. He's just like, if it means that me and this company get more money, then who gives a shit about you? And I think that's how a lot of businesses operate nowadays, which is really, really unfortunate. And I'm not going to go into details, but obviously that was a horrible decision, and the company has gone to shit in the couple of months that have followed to... Oh, if they made a movie of it, I would watch it. They got what they deserved, basically. But that's them. I think there are a lot of companies that currently do it, and they get away with it. And then they whine and complain about, why aren't my employees doing better? Why are so many people quitting? Why are the people who are staying suck so much? It's always just kind of blame, blame, blame. Why are these people not doing this? Why are these people doing this? Whatever it might be. And I think a lot of that is just because the people who are put in management positions just don't know how to lead. They know how to do their jobs, they know how to fill out the forms, they know how to hit a deadline, but they don't know how to develop trust. They don't know how to develop a personal relationship. They don't know how to inspire motivation. They don't know how to create team culture. All these things are completely foreign to them because most companies can't put, a definition to a lot of those terms, let alone, teach someone how to do it on a day-to-day basis. And when I think about that, I'm like, okay, in my situation, I had one person who couldn't lead, and that affected the lives of, not only the, 15 people that he got rid of, but also all of our staff who I mean, every single manager probably had one lead and, 10 to 15 staff, and all of them were directly affected too, because the managers had good relationships with them. The managers were helping coordinate them. The managers were, their inspiration, and now they're gone. A lot of the staff felt like, okay, this is messed up. I'm gone too. And then, most of all, I think it affected the clients. Like, those are people who really, really counted on those managers in place. Like, you can't just walk up to someone and be like, okay, now I'm going to, manage your house. You have to know their histories. You have to know their diagnosis. You have to know their triggers. You have to know their symptoms. You have to know their medications. You have to know their behavioral plans. You have to know their health needs. Like, there is so much information you need to know, not to mention you need to actually have a good relationship with them. They need to trust you with all that shit, because it is serious. And he could not care. He's like, they're products. Who gives a shit who manages them? He didn't say that quote exactly, but that's essentially the tone that he was giving. And I'm like, God, like, even nowadays, I mean, I know that he is responsible for his behaviors and I'm responsible for mine, but I'm thinking, like, goddamn, in that meeting with the owner, if I could have specified why that idiot was not a leader, things might have turned out different. And so that's kind of why I got on this kick of why I want to start this company. I wanted to learn everything that there is when it comes to, the topics that I talked about, essentially leadership. Because I knew how to do it myself, but I didn't know it well enough to put it into words. And I have just been, like, consuming, like, books, videos, seminars, podcasts, like every little bit of information that I possibly could to actually have a fantastic grasp on it. And as of right now, I feel like you could drop me in any workplace and you could tell me a team-related question and I could give you an answer, no problem. Like, the answer would probably be complicated, and it won't be complicated. It might be complicated. A lot of the time it's going to fall on, whoever's in charge of the group is not doing what they need to do, but I can specifically tell you why they're not doing what they need to do. I can tell you what they need to do to change, how to change it, the steps we can take, the timelines you can expect, the reactions you're going to expect. I can tell you the scientific theory behind it. I can tell you the chemicals in your brain that make you think this way or make your employees think that way. I can tell you the theories. I can tell you whatever it is you need to know. And now that I'm at that point, I want to be able to give that knowledge and that skill training and that experience development to other companies that need it, because I don't think a lot of people who are in management positions, are the, really greedy, money hungry, I'm going to exploit everyone under me so I can most profit myself. I think they are genuinely trying to help their teams. I think they genuinely do care about their teams, but they just don't know how. And so when they try, they do things that make sense or that they've seen on TV or movies, and surprise, it doesn't work at all. And then they get frustrated, and that frustration passes down to their teams, and it's just a bad cycle from there. So that's kind of what I'm there for. I want to help the leaders because I know that by helping the leaders, I'm helping their entire team under them. That's an entire group of people who feel safe in their job. They feel supported. They feel like they have a sense of purpose. They feel like they have a team they can trust and a leader they can trust. Because I think that makes all the difference when it comes to actually being in your job for the money or being in it because you love it. So that's what I want to do, and that's why I'm doing it. Because I don't want anyone else to have to go through that situation, because it was such a shitty situation. Like, I can't even imagine how it affected other people, who got it worse than I did. But yeah, that's a little bit about me and my history and why I'm doing this. I don't have an ender yet, so bye.